Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 100 of Podcast vs. Enemies, a Destiny massive breakdown show. Gotta be honest, boys, I never thought I'd even say that. I never thought any of the three of us would say that, but it's true. Episode 100, it's here. Incredible. My name is Impetus, and I am joined by my dear friends and co-hosts through all 100 of these episodes. Again, I'm just so grateful for that. Saint, Court, even our audio engineer has been the same for all 100 episodes. How about that? Autodidactos, shout out to you. We tried to get him on today, but he is not feeling well, so please send him some best wishes. Boys, how are we doing?
I'm doing good. I've been eagerly awaiting this week of the season ever since we found out what was coming with our Iron Banner update. And Iron Banner itself, you know, it can be a mixed bag. Saladin giveth, Saladin taketh away, right? But overall, it's been a good week. It's good anytime you see a big weapon like that come out. Multi-mot coming back, Tusk of the Boar, which we'll talk about a little bit. It just gets some good energy going around the game. The Into Light live streams have been hitting. The energy, the momentum has been picking up around D2, to say the least, for sure. I'm seeing old, friends of mine that haven't been playing in months come back to the game, and it's hard to not let that, just kind of get you excited about the game and about what's coming on Tuesday with Into the Light and all the stuff coming up just a couple months after that. Also did some GM runs over the past week or two with my buddies Prof and No D. Shout out to those guys. Had a lot of fun just farming out some GM weapons, and also had another clan PvP night over in Clan Truth. That's always a lot of fun. We do private matches. We do all kinds of strange rules, green weapons only, DMT only, all kinds of stuff like that. It makes for a really good time. Court, how about you, man? How you doing?
Doing well. What a great episode to kick things off. Or a little kind of casual episode this time. Got some drinks by my side. I've got my cat Jasper behind me playing around. So if you hear any noises, that's him, not me dropping glasses if I'm getting a little bit too tipsy. But yes, last week for me, I've been doing quite a lot of Destiny, which is kind of a little bit different to what I normally do. Kind of take a little bit of a break when there's any kind of major expansion or kind of mid-season update. But so I've been doing some plenty of D2 with my IRL buddy. We've managed to complete all of the seasonal content of the year and got him up to basically near pinnacle cap. Did a few dungeons as well. Managed to do a Warlord's Ruin, which is his most his recent on-light dungeon. His most recent on-light. We've done a few of the others like Grasp of Avarice, Shattered Throne, and yeah, he's been having a blast. I've been having a blast as well, just kind of seeing it from kind of someone who doesn't engage with that type of content on the regular. So it's very interesting to see it from his perspective. So shout out to my buddy Lucha Bear for the fun times, and many more as well. I'm sure we'll be in Onslaught having a good time there as well. And can't wait for this episode, lads.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm really excited. I've also been doing Iron Banner, and I've also been doing Warlord's Ruin. We did get that Tusk of the Boar with chain reaction. Very excited for that. Probably won't have it on for too long until, Mountaintop starts dropping. Then we'll all switch over to Mountaintop. But at least I have a Strand Waveframe grenade launcher in my vault, my soon-to-be larger vault. Also did get Indebted Kindness and Buried Bloodline, finally. So I'm good to go. Hopefully going to get the Catalyst unlocked tonight and completed in time for Into the Light. But yeah, I'm ready to go. And let's get on with the show, Saint. Who are we thanking?
Yeah, we want to give some shout outs to supporters of the show as always. We'll start off with a bit of a write-in from Aaron here. Says that he loves the work that we do over here at PvE, helped him stay connected to the game, which means a lot, even when not super actively playing. Congrats on the milestones, upcoming episode 100. Keep up the great work, which We really appreciate that. Reviews help support the show and all that stuff, but even just hearing some encouraging feedback like that always goes a long way. Hitting a big milestone like this obviously does not happen with a lot of support from a lot of different people. Speaking of, I want to give shout out to sponsors of our show that go above and beyond to support us, including Asking Monk. I'm K Rose in this moment. You can send us all kinds of feedback about the show to our socials or in the Destiny Massive Breakdowns Discord server. Positive and constructive critical feedback always help with the way that we structure and present content in the show. We want to extend a special thanks to everybody that supports PvE, downloading and listening to the show, discussing it with their friends on social media, chatting in the Discord server, and supporting us via Patreon. Speaking of Patreon, if you would like to support the show, please visit DestinyMassiveBreakdowns.com and click on the link to Patreon. You'll get access to some members-only channel in the Discords, and behind the episode's previews, and maybe some other things that we'll be talking about in just a second, which, we'll hold that on. But there's some more stuff coming if you happen to be a patron of the show at the moment. Court, what are we talking about today?
Well, this is our 100th episode special, so it's going to be very different to our normal kind of breakdown episodes. We're not breaking anything down. We are very well aware of Into the Light news. There's lots of things to talk about, like the Craftable Whisper, Craftable Outbreak, the classic missions that are attached to those weapons as well, the new Raid Gauntlet. We've discussed many of those things with our last episode with Chris Proctor, but we're not talking about any of those. We'll come back to those when they are in game, and we'll do our classic breakdowns. But this episode is just one with the lads. Brewskis with the Broskis, or as Saint coined the phrase just before we went live, liquor with the lads. So quite a casual episode, just going to be chatting about our experiences, highs and lows of Destiny, all that kind of jazz, all that good stuff. Speaking of Chris Proctor, if you been living in a cave or under a rock for the last week or so, he joined us on our last episode, 99, to discuss Into the Light weapons. Shared a lot of great insight, and we're very thankful to get another peek behind the curtain. And like I said, we are well aware of the Into the Light news and all that jazz, so we'll come back to that when in a couple of weeks' time, on top of any Final Shape news. But obviously, I speak for the three of us. We are really hyped for this free content that's coming up. We do have a episode transcript of that one up on the D&B website. If you're after the highlights, you can read them on Reddit as well. You can find the links in the show notes. And of course, thank you to everyone who listened to the episode and /or read the episode transcript and breakdown. And a shout out to those who have done breakdown videos, highlights, and covered the show just to kind of extend our reach. It's been really great, very thankful to see all those kind of videos and kind of notes kind of bouncing around the Destiny community. All right, Impetus, we have some special giveaway. I'll pass it back to you for that.
Absolutely. We've got a episode 100 giveaway for the patrons. We have been holding on to, not intentionally, we've been waiting for a special opportunity, but we are in the possession of a absolutely beautiful painting of the Witherhoard weapon, made by a dear friend of the show and patron, actually, Irresolute, artist, Destiny artist, does fantastic work. I know, Saint, you've gotten commissions from him. I've gotten commissions from him. He's made a few other things for the DMB brand in the past, but yes, we do also have a painting of Witherhoard that we're going to be giving away. This is a physical art piece, just to be clear. So we're going to be mailing it out to whoever wins the giveaway, and there is an image that we've posted of the art piece over on the Discord in the Patrons Lounge. I believe, Saint, you also just posted a picture of that to Twitter as well for people that follow the Destiny Massive Breakdowns Twitter account. So go look at that. Go make a decision here. If you want to join this giveaway, all the patrons with an active DMB membership will automatically be a part of the giveaway. So if you are an active patron, you don't need to do anything other than just make sure that your membership is active for the month of April. We'll be pulling a name out of the proverbial hat to randomly select a winner. We'll be doing this about 1 week from when the 100th episode goes out. and the winner will be announced sometime during the week commencing April 15th of this year, 2024. So get over to the Patreon if you're not on there already. If you already are on the Patreon, fingers crossed, hope you win. It is, again, it's a really, really good looking painting, and I am a little jealous that we're not going to be able to be in the running for this painting, but you know what? Maybe I can just hit up Irresolute and see if he can make another one for me, because it's a wonderful, wonderful piece for a wonderful, wonderful PvE weapon, honestly. So that is our special PvE announcement. Now we can get into our proper Brewskis with the Broskis. Again, this is just going to be some casual conversation, a little celebration of our respective Destiny careers, the career of the show. I was wondering, boys, if I could kick things off with a little segment. What was Destiny 2 like when episode 1 of PvE dropped? We'll do a little quiz, see if you can recall some of the things that were in effect all the way back in season 15, Season of the Lost. Although, for being truthful, being technical here, we really did kind of come after the anniversary pack portion of Season of the Lost. But yes, we did debut on January 10th of 2022. And the most recent content that came out around that time would have been the anniversary pack, which was December 7th of 2021. Witch Queen was just over a month away. So we were in the midst of playing Dares of Eternity in our brand new dungeon, Grasp of Avarice. In fact, that was episode 1, was Saint and I running that and talking about the weapon breakdown, doing it as we do. Now, Season of the Wish, Season 15, was our first season with legendary stasis weapons. Also the first season was stasis element armor. Remember when armor had elements? Got to have all your sets. All your sets. Yep. Which also meant it was the first season with stasis armor mods. Do you remember what some of those stasis armor mods were? Kickstart mods. The Kickstart mods were stasis.
Of
Grenade
course,
Kickstart,
yes. Yeah.
Melee Kickstart utility. And then you also had Season 15 was the final season that we got new Elemental Well mods. Remember that?
Yeah.
Got the Stasis Elemental Well mods and a few other ones that weren't Stasis, but Supreme Wellmaker, of course, debuted in Season of the Lost, where casting your super got 3 Stasis Elemental Wells to immediately drop. A few other ones too, but yeah, that was crazy. And then, of course, first season with Artifice Armor. That was unique to Grasp of Avarice at the time.
Yeah,
now,
man.
at the time of episode 1, there were 8 stasis weapons in the game. And I know that Court has already seen this list a little bit when I was crafting it. So this is mostly going to be aimed at you, Saint, here. Can you name
Lord.
the 8 stasis weapons that were in the game? I'll give you a hint. There were 5 legendaries and 3 exotics.
Okay. Exotics, I'm going to say is Cryostesia?
Yep.
One of those? Okay. Yep. And then we have got definitely the grenade launcher, Salvation's Grip, right?
Yep.
And Scepter? Aegir Scepter?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's the 3 exotics.
Okay.
5 legendary weapons.
Now, I'm going to say I'm feeling strong about Fractithist.
Yep.
Right? Was that season? Vulpecula?
Yep.
Right? In that season. Oh, man. You said 5 legendary weapons that were stasis?
Mm-hmm.
Was Riptide out yet? Or is that later?
Nope.
No, that's later.
That's later.
Yeah. That was like the Eris Morn season. Is like season 17.
Season Haunted.
Yeah,
Yep.
Season Haunted.
Yep. You broke down one of these weapons in episode 1.
Oh, Ice Luna.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. What about, was Duality out yet? With, that would have been...
Did you mean the dungeon?
Yeah.
Duality was not out yet. That was also Season of the Haunted.
Yeah, man.
You were missing a sidearm.
Oh, Syncopation? Or was that Witch Queen?
That would have been Witch Queen.
God,
Witch Queen.
dude, man.
The sidearm dropped from Iron Banner.
Oh, Peacebound?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
And then the last one...
Okay.
Last one I actually mentioned in episode 99 with Chris Proctor.
Oh, dude, why you gotta tease me like that?
There was a certain perk that dropped on this weapon.
Oh, Zephyr.
It's not. Yes.
Okay.
Zephyr.
All right. I don't feel so bad about my weapon knowledge. When you said 5 legendaries, I was like, I can think of 3. So that was...
Yeah, it was 2 hand cannons. You had Vulpecula, Stasis 180, Ias Luna, Stasis 140, P-Spawn, the Sidearm, Fractithus, one of the best PvP shotguns still to this day.
Yeah.
Zephyr was dropping during the Dawning, and that had been, again, that served as what, originally Arc, right? And then it got reprised as Stasis, and that's when we got the Cold Steel perk.
I can't believe Cold Steel is that old.
Oh yeah, it was Headstone was technically our first Stasis perk, and then it was Cold Steel, and then Chill Clip debuted in Witch Queen with the, with several weapons. So you would have had Palmyra, and then the Vow Precision Frame Fusion Rifle, but then the season after, Season of the Haunted, is when we got it on Riptide, which is when everyone really started paying attention to Chill Clip.
Yeah.
And then you had Salvation's Grasp, Cryosthesia 77k, and Augur's Scepter, in that order for your exotics.
Man, you guys think Deliverance is going to get a little more popular after they make that change?
The Chill Clip change?
Yeah, Chill Clip change. Speaking of Deliverance, because it's like kind of always been on the edge of like being really good, I feel like.
I mean, I've crafted one with demo Chill Clip, and it's just sat in my vault.
Yeah.
I've never considered getting rid of it, to be honest, but even though I had a Riptide Chill Clip, I don't know. I'll have to bust it out and see.
Could be time.
So those were your stasis weapons. Let's see, some other big things here. Resilience did not grant damage resistance against combatants. That came with Season of the Haunted.
Ugh.
Yeah.
The dark times.
Saint was probably the only person that had like a decently high resilience armor at that point.
Yeah, shout out to being a Titan main. I was made for that change, man. I've been living my whole life for that change.
Oh, that was a huge one. Let's see. Variable ability cooldowns had just been introduced. That was the big shakeup with the 30th anniversary. So that was when supers had passive generation that was based on your intellect stat. That was a new development. The supers were divided into 5 cooldown tiers. That's no longer the case. I mean, I guess all 5 tiers do exist. We just only use 3 of them now.
Technically 3? Yeah.
Yeah, it's just 3 now. Just the middle 3. Grenades divided into 7 cooldown tiers. The melees were divided into 4 cooldown tiers. I don't think those values have. I think all those tiers are still in use. I couldn't find anything that said that those had been changed. But that was all brand new with 30th anniversary. That was all fresh to us. Our new weapon perks at the time that came with the 30th anniversary pack: Golden Tricorn, Eager Edge, Perpetual Motion, Saint's favorite. And then the silly one, of course, being Blunt Execution Rounds was also new.
Man, Gallahorn had just come on the scene, you know?
Yep.
It was kind of just really starting to like assert its dominance in the sandbox, its long reigning dominance. Man.
That is Destiny 2 in a nutshell when episode 1 launched all the way back in January 2 years ago.
It's like it's hard to imagine a world in which resilience does not affect your DR at this point. It's like such a change. Like tier 10 resilience has been so mandatory in my mind for so long. It's like hard to go back and imagine like times before that, right?
I was struggling to figure out what it did before the change because there were so many articles that were talking about that initial change and then the slight nerf that it got when Lightfall launched. Like, that's how monumental it's been. I think it was just like a teeny tiny amount of, was it flinch resistance or did it actually impact in PvP? Because it was just a PvP stat, right?
I mean, it was flinch resistance in it. It was just, that your TTK thresholds for weird, random stuff for a long time was like the only, driving force behind running like really high tiers resilience. Man, I still remember seeing the new armor charge mod set for the very first time, and thinking, where's the incentive to run like quadruple font of might? And Rodney was like, no, you just put the mods on your boots. And my mind could not comprehend that. And also, as the part of that testing, we were told nothing for like the first week of using it because they wanted to get kind of like a genuine, player adoption reaction of what it was going to be like. So the whole first like week that we were on, that we were experimenting with this mod set, there was like zero instruction, and I'm just like losing my mind trying to figure out what happened to all my mods. How do I do anything? Yeah, I don't know. I kind of miss those mods still, and I know that was definitely a power creep nerf because when I look back at like I think this is Crow's Inn raid, right? Would have been the last raid race where we had all the fonts of the font mods, and they were just so ridiculously strong, and you could spawn so much stuff so easily with those things. It was crazy.
Oh, you mean Kingsfall?
Kingsfall, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, Kingsfall. That's my bad.
Yeah. Then there's all the stuff that we did outside of the podcast, like Sync got married and went to go work for Bungie for a little bit.
Yeah, that was
between episode 100.
A hell of a year, dude. Let me tell you what. I got laid off from a job for the first time in my life. I got a job at Bungie, and then I got married, all within the span of like 9 months, I think, or something like that. I don't think I've ever had a more like volatile year in my life, but yeah, that was like hugely instrumental and kind of like shaping the next like few years of my life. I mean, not obviously like personally, yes, sure, but there's no way that I would be working on games at all right now in any way or pursuing like that path in my career if that hadn't happened. And this is like a very meta topic, but when I was growing up, the idea was, hey, like you want to like be successful and you want to like live a good life, then like you need to study a STEM career path. And like that is your only option of basically you can study like engineering, mathematics, or accounting, finance, and analytics were like, the career paths were laid in front of me. The idea that like making video games as like software or designing them was like a potentially viable path to make a career was like out of my mind almost entirely until I had that kind of moment where, I'm thinking, hey, I've been working on software for like 5-6 years at this point. And games are obviously very different than trying to implement some ERP system or develop like analytics pipelines, whatever the case may be. But turns out that like software is software, and a lot of those things are like incredibly similar. So huge shout out to like all the people that like interviewed me and gave me a chance. I mean, Cosmo was like one of the people that interviewed me. Dylan Wynn was like the recruiter that like gave me the first call to, give me that chance. Shout out to Ben and shout out to Brendan Thorne that were willing to like, give us advice. It's like people that were interested in like how the game is made and all that stuff. Yeah, what an experience, man.
I moved across the country. Well, not really. I mean, saying across makes it sound like I went from coast to coast. I moved a third of the way across the country. I went from living with my parents during episode 1 to living with roommates to then now living by myself. So, and there were, of course, a new job that came with that move and everything. Corey, you also got a new job during that time, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so I left my old job around about episode 1. So I wasn't here for episodes 1 and 2, just because it was so chaotic for me. A lot of my family birthdays fall in January, including my own. So I left my job just before Christmas of the previous year, that just before the episode went up, or the podcast went for its first episode. And then I got a new one, which was kind of related to what I'm currently doing in terms of like graphic design. And yeah, so comparably to both of you guys, it was relatively calmer for me that year. It was more the end of the year where things started picking up in terms of projects related to Destiny, where I started doing the sort of infographics. That's where I started really hyping or ramping production for those kind of things, because I had a lot more time compared to my previous position in my previous job. I could work on that on the side. So I can remember it was the Champion counters. That was my like fully fledged first one, which is kind of my little kind of baby, which I'm still working on, tweaking with kind of here or there. But it was really unique because I know when they announced the changes of champions being changed for Lightfall, how you can interact with your sandbox to stun them, and saying you can go into a little bit more detail about this as well, because I know you were kind of playing around with this when you were at Bungie. But I just was like, I feel like this could be visually explained, a list of all these like new stunning effects and all the things that give you radiant and all the things that are arc blind and void suppression and all that. So all the light 3.0s were kind of live at this point, so we knew exactly what was providing all those modifiers. So yeah, like that was a great time for me. Again, not as busy as both of you guys, moving or changing jobs fundamentally, but yeah, that was it was an interesting year for the three of us. But yeah, saying you kind of worked on, or not worked on, but you got a little kind of early insight of the champion counters.
Yeah, it was really interesting for sure. And I remember kind of the idea being there's kind of like themes. If you look at the way that the Sandbox champion counters are categorized, there are kind of like themes to it, the way that like slow and jolt are targeted towards overloads, right? And then you have ignitions and blinds that would stun and unstoppable, and then things that would affect your bullets essentially are going to affect barrier champions. Your kind of volatile rounds, unravel rounds, that type of thing. And even talking about that, the immediate conversation, like you're talking about, Cord, is like, how are people going to even know this? And that's where part of that like UI interface thing was born from. If you go look in your character, UI right now on the left side next to your weapons, there's that little section that kind of describes the champion counters, and that was the way of like, okay, this is too much information for people to memorize. We have to give them some way to be able to reference this in game, even if it's not like ubiquitously communicating how they're supposed to set these things up. The list or something like that has got to be written down somewhere. And I think that's like part of the tough part about making games more complicated, right? Which so now I'm I want to kind of dip back into like early D2. I mean, like vanilla D2 days and talk about this, because when you think about the idea of like the champion system and your subclass verbs interacting with champions, that is like such an advanced level, like sandbox topic for a MMO, kind of first person shooter game like this. And I think that it's so good to see that is like where we have come over the years. I mean, Destiny 2 launched in like September 2017, right? I'm getting some nods
I think it was
here.
2017.
Yeah. Yep. And I think that specific change speaks to like how much this game has changed over the years, because when you go back and you look at vanilla D2, which I don't know if I have any gameplay footage of that, but if I do, I'll try to incorporate it into this episode. Some like really just some earlier Sandbox kind of gameplay and stuff like that. But it was just so simplified compared to where we are today. And there are pros to that and there are cons to that, right? Like it was way easier to understand a lot of the aspects of the game, but at the same time, the requirement to have aspects of the game that are so much easier to understand is that they generally have to be more shallow, right? They can't have these really deep reaching interactions and tie-ins between your abilities and your subclass that you're setting up and the enemies that you're fighting against and the specific counters and how those play out, right? And I just think that the system kind of speaks to the fact of like, we're really not playing the same game. We're so far from the game that came out in 2017. And it's wild to honestly think that the champ stun subclass verb system is something that exists in that game. If you were around, you were playing vanilla D2 or you're playing earlier versions of D2. It was just so clean and simple, honestly, are like the ways that I would want to describe that. And that made for really interesting parts of the like PvP sandbox and stuff like that. But also, it just, it had some negative effects too, for sure, on the overall game.
think, and we can talk about this maybe a little bit later, but just as a side tangent, that was always one of my biggest complaints with Destiny, and it's only been a recent addition where our subclass effects like Radiant and Volatile Rounds and all that started actually playing with our weapons and vice versa, and the champion effects as well. It's comparably to when Destiny launched as Destiny 1, it's only been like within the last two and a half years before they really started implementing and sharing the sandbox between abilities and weapons. For the benefit of my hosts here, I've put in the Season 19 champions graphic or infographic with the Season 23, and you can see where it's kind of expanded quite substantially since we've had the champion effects kind of introduced with Lightfall. The Season 19 infographic was kind of we didn't know that the two verbs for Strand at that point, but we knew about Radiant, Volatile Rounds, Jolt, Suppression, Blind, Ignition, and Freeze into Shatter. I'll probably try and put this up somewhere in the Discord server on my Twitter just to kind of give you a comparison of what we're discussing here. But yeah, like just seeing that system evolve has been like really great to see, considering to my point about abilities and weapons kind of gelling together. We finally see the sandboxes overlap, and that's been one of the best features I've seen introduced to the game. I know maybe we'll talk about Lightfall this episode and just kind of the low points of that, but some of the best quality of life additions came with Lightfall, and this was one of them, the champion effects, to what you were saying there as well, Saint. So I'm very proud of the work that I've kind of I've done for that infographic, because it is quite,
as you should be.
Yeah, it's quite a complex system now. It's got to the point where I need to revamp the next version because we've got so many to display. It's become a little bit. Personally, for me, I'm quite critical with my project work, but I think it's getting a little bit too unsightly because there's just so many things that give you blind. We've got like 16 things in the game that gives you blind for stunning unstoppables. So yeah, it's very interesting how far we've come from. But
if we get a third darkness subclass, you're probably gonna have to make multiple infographics.
We're going to 2 pages.
Yeah, so you can see where you've got 4 for unstoppables and only 3 for barriers and overloads. So this hypothetical third darkness subclass is likely going to be barrier and overloads. But as you can see with overloads, we've got 5, 10, 15, 18 jolt applicators and 16 slow. It's just we've got quite
they
a
also
lot
have
of
like
things.
Scorch, and it's like, Scorch triggers ignition, and it's like, what does Scorch? These 27 things over here do Scorch. That's all. Or I don't know, is it 26? It's so many.
Yeah, I don't have a count on hand, but it takes up like 8 by 3 rows or rows. But yeah, so that was my little side tangent. Very happy to work on those type of projects. I've worked on the damage stacking, which I know people have been waiting for. That was released this year rather than last year, or I should say the end of last year, 2023. And I've worked on rocket launchers, and I've got some more coming out very soon as well. So it's been over the last since the podcast has started, I've had quite a lot of kind of side projects to kind of attach to Podcast versus Enemies. But as I said, you guys were very busy during that year when we debuted the podcast.
So that brings me to a couple other topics I want to talk about. The first time I ever heard about Court was when it was during D2 Warmind. And I was trying to farm out these bosses because I really wanted the Iglo shotgun, right? And I wanted the other weapons, but I knew what this thing could do with Trench Barrel, which, by the way, Trench Barrel was like unhinged good. And Eichel's shotgun was a heavy weapon when this released. Just again, to set some perspectives here, it was just like a timer, and it did like a 50% damage buff on your weapon, I want to say. It was really high, and it was not limited to the number of shots that you had shot off, and the timer was way higher. And again, this was a heavy weapon at the time. And I kept getting into arguments with people about debuff and buff stacking whenever I was farming out bosses on Escalation Protocol. And you would get these lobbies with like 6 to 9 people. So you got a lot of opinions coming in. And I was like trying to get friends together to like do testing on these bosses. And it was like, I was not good at this. Let's be clear. I was having a really hard time, and I was struggling to do like consistent damage tests. I was trying to do damage tests with an auto rifle that I had some mods on that I was like trying to document a bunch of different values. And I was getting super frustrated for this. So I started looking around on the internet and Reddit. And that's when I found a damage stacking guide from Court. This is like 2018, maybe. And that's just like my Bible. And when people would start arguing with me, I would stop arguing with them and just like message them a link to the name of the Reddit document and be like, don't argue with me. Just go look at the damage stacking infographic and stop arguing, because I'm not going to convince you that I'm right, but Court can probably convince you that he is right with his infographics. So saved me a lot of time and headache, and I've been grateful for that ever since. And I actually just kept that bookmark for a really long time, and it wasn't until we started getting into PvE, which we can talk more about early Destiny 2 in a minute, but the topics that I wanted to bring out from that were, how did you guys first get engaged with Massive Breakdowns, and how did we come to be as a trio of hosts? Impetus, you kick this off.
So let's see here. This would have been January of 2022. Yeah. No, sorry, 2021. I apologize. I had been getting into YouTube and Twitch Destiny content creators. I was still pretty new to Destiny. I had joined sometime in, it would have been August of 2020. That's what it would have been. Yeah, it was August of 2020 is when I started playing, which at the time was season 11 was winding down, and then we found out Beyond Light was getting delayed. So that was the first time a season had ever been extended. But that's when I first started playing. I was playing by myself. I did not have any friends that were playing Destiny 2. So I was getting into all this stuff on my own, just kind of figuring out content creators. I joined a clan. People were giving me a bunch of people that, sources and stuff that they recommended. And I somehow found my way to the Firing Range podcast. And that's how I learned about Merc. And I had already followed all the other folks on Firing Range on YouTube. But Merc was kind of the one that I only really interacted with him through Firing Range at that time. And I liked a lot of his opinions. I liked that he had a lot of statistical analysis from his spreadsheet. But it was only in January of 2021 that I actually decided to go and start listening to that podcast, because I wanted to start getting some weapons for PvP, because I didn't play a lot of PvP. I was mostly a PvE player. And so that's when I started listening to the podcast. I had no idea who Kit was until he introduced himself on the first episode I listened to. It was like, oh, he has a co-host. Oh, I didn't know that. But yeah, I fell in love with them. I was a delivery driver at that time, because it was one of the few jobs that you could have during the pandemic that I didn't have to have too much contact with a lot of people. I was delivering cookies around Long Island. So I would drive around listening to Massive Breakdowns on Fridays, looking forward to that new episode dropping. And then I would listen to other podcasts and music all the other times. So that's how I first came to learn about DMB. I became a sponsor sometime after that, pretty quickly, because I just loved the work that the guys were doing. That brought me to the Discord. And then I started hanging out in the Patrons Lounge, started interacting with people. But I did not know either of you until we were reached out to for the show. Like Saint and I, we met for the first time. Well, I guess we were talking. Well, I don't know if we actually talked in the Patrons Lounge or not, or in other areas, but we were in the voice chat for the first time together, like right before episode 1 when we did Grasp of Avarice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is so crazy to
We
think
went and
about.
did the dungeon and then recorded the
That's so
episode.
weird.
About it. We did the duo dungeon run and then recorded the episode.
That's how we met.
Yeah, I had seen. So context here, I think it was Kit that would do like Gunsmith Armory Day refresh like gun perk combo evaluations on like Destiny 1. So Wednesdays was like the Gunsmith's refresh day, I want to say, in Destiny 1, and you could complete bounties to get specific weapons, and then on Wednesday the perk sets on those weapons would change, and you could like pick your new set of weapons. And I want to say it was Kit that would go on to Destiny Reddit and write like breakdowns of these perk sets and give knowledge on them. So it was the first time I had any interaction with these guys. And I think that I maybe read I was like trying to get better at Crucible, kind of, similar to Impetus. And I was reading Crucible Playbook from Merc about like crit ratio requirements or something. Like it was like it was a really nerdy topic, but I was like trying to get in to understand the Crucible better because my knowledge of the Crucible was non-existent. I didn't know anything about PvP. And it wasn't until like a while after that, and like really late D1, early D2, I had a buddy of mine, Lil Hobo, another IRL friend of mine from way back, recommended me the podcast of Massive Breakdowns. It's like very into D1. And I started listening in then, and I became a patron of this show right before they did their infamous Cartesian coordinate review, which
never forget.
Yeah, I was to say if you listen to a lot of Massive Breakdowns, you know what we're talking about. They recommended what we would call a non-optimal roll on Cartesian coordinate, given its role as a special weapon. And I think I wrote Merc, and I was like, brother, no, like, how could you do this to the people that listen to this show? And he humored me and wrote me back, and he was like, yeah, you're like the 9th person to message us. Like, we know we fumbled the bag on this. Like, I'm sorry, man. And so then we, but that like started a bit of a conversation, and I started talking about wanting to do, I was like, man, I would love if you guys would do, or, had a more PvE focused segment. Like, I know that you and Kit are like super knowledgeable, and like that's why I listen to MB all the time. But I would love if you guys would do a PvE segment. I'm like somebody that's like super into rating and that side of the game, but I also love this like analytical kind of side of the game and the stats side of the game. And his response was basically, yeah, we don't really have any plans, but like I'll let you know if that ever kind of comes about. And it was like, I don't know, it's a few months later that he messaged me back and was like, hey, would you be interested in meeting with like some other people that are like potential candidates for doing a PvE show? And I was like, oh, okay. And that was when I got introduced to Impetus. And I had seen you in the patron slots for like, I don't know, the last like couple of months or something like that. But yeah, we hardly knew each other, just kind of like adjacent there. And Court, how about you, man?
Well, so, and we'll talk about like early Destiny days, as Saint said earlier. But I knew of Merc and Kits through Planet Destiny way back. They were obviously contributors to the website, to the YouTube channel. But I didn't I watched Planet Destiny back then, but I wasn't like focused on one individual content creator who contributed to Planet Destiny. So it wasn't until like much, but it like Warmind, Forsaken days where I started being quite active on the Destiny community. And I'm quite I don't use Reddit a lot in terms of like typing out posts or comment. It's just for viewing. And I saw Merc's posts for massive breakdowns, literally massive breakdowns of XYZ analytics for PvP stuff, and I would read those and I was like, this is really interesting, this is really like top tier, this is what we need in Destiny, because it is quite on the surface level it's we don't have anything like this. So that introduced me to a spreadsheet, and at that time it was kind of an overlap of when I started my spreadsheet, which was very separate to what Merc was providing with his like time to kills, all the kind of individual numbers for each weapon. I was focused really on damage stacking. But at that time, I wasn't really was quite clueless that Destiny Massive Breakdowns, the franchise, the brand, the podcast was even a thing. I was quite I knew it existed, but I wasn't really interested in listening to PvP because I wasn't that much of a PvP player. So it was beyond that. I think it was maybe Shadowkeep days. So we're talking like a year and a half after I started my spreadsheet, where Kit actually approached me to say, "Oh, would you like to join the Discord server?" I've been a Discord server enthusiast, a Discordian enthusiast for some time, so I'm aware how Discord works. I wasn't like brand new to Discord, so I said, "Yeah, I can join." And he kind of, it was almost like a kind of a pitch. He was like, "Look, we want to kind of bolster Destiny Massive Breakdowns, the Discord server, as like the kind of place to be for Destiny science, because there was a lot of other kind of scientists there, a lot of spreadsheets, a lot of links to all these other kind of places." So it was unofficially like the bastion for Destiny science at that time. And that's when I started listening, and then I kind of engaged with the wider DMB community. Was on the Discord server, and again, I wasn't really listening to the show, but like I was kind of getting more kind of interacting with the community, interacting with Kit and Merc, and I think at that point where I was more, welcoming people to the server. Oh, here's all the answers that you can read up on the data compendium or my spreadsheet or these spreadsheets. And I think that's where folks started realizing this guy, Court, he's quite proactive and reactive when it comes to Destiny science and for like getting people kind of involved with that. So I didn't reach out to Kit or Merc about a PvE episode or podcast, but I believe some of the patrons, some of the kind of regular scientists are the ones that reached out to them and put my name forward for the podcast. And in terms of like, did I know Impetus and Saint at that time? No, I was like completely clueless. I think maybe Saint, I knew you were very pro, you were quite knowledgeable and like knowledgeable when it comes to like low man or like small raid activities. That was like the extent of my knowledge when it came to my co-hosts here, but I knew no one. So on episode 3, and you can go back and listen to it, I was a bit of a nervous wreck because I'm not overly fond of meeting brand new people, just with the nature of who I am. So I was just like, oh my god, I'm out of my depth. Even though I
podcast with strangers, bro.
I know, it was just so like I had to keep pinching myself. It's like, is this real? I'm not dreaming of this. Even though I know a lot of folks look up to me, to what you were saying like 5 or 10 minutes ago, saying about people go to my spreadsheet and they use it as
in Warmind in 2018. Okay,
yes. They use the spreadsheet as a look at this. This is your answer. So I know folks look up to me, but it was very surreal for me to start a podcast with 2 guys that I've never chatted with before. And it was around about that time when I joined as a patron as well. So it was, even though I was very active within the Destiny Massive Breakdowns Discord server, I wasn't actually a patron. So it was strange to think back then. But yeah, it's been a very long timeline. So folks might think I've been part of DMB the longest because my spreadsheet was created back in Warmind days for like debuff stacking. But it wasn't until couple months before episode 1 when, we started getting the balls rolling in terms of getting the 3 of us together to organize a proper like PvE podcast. And it's been an absolute treat with you guys. I think as my final point in terms of this topic here, we've had a few reviews, we've had a few comments from folks that say that the 3 of us, when we are chatting on these type of episodes, when we're doing our breakdown analysis, especially like our more recent ones, our more recent episodes, it sounds like we've been like best friends since school, since we were kids, So, I mean, I suppose, a match made in heaven with the three of us. It's that
when it was like
review,
episode
it's always
5,
resonated for me.
and we started talking about classes, and Court was like, "Well, I'm a hunter main," and Impetus
Oh
goes,
yeah, I remember.
"Yeah,
This.
I play a lot of different classes, but I've really been playing a lot of Warlock recently." And I was like, "Holy shit!" We are literally all 3 classes that each of us, we got a hunter main, we got a warlock main, and we've got a titan main. Out of the 3 people that they like randomly picked, and out of everybody that they talked to do this show, this is what worked out, is somebody from each class. And that was the moment where I was like, okay, this is going to work. This is it right here. Yeah, this is just meant to be a little bit.
We lucked out, man. RNGesus came through in a big way for the podcast.
Yeah.
Got the 3 out of 3 hosts, got the brand still going strong, 100 episodes in, 3 developer interviews.
Yeah. Man,
can't ask for more of that.
That's another topic I'm going to touch on briefly, is like the impact that I feel like Massive Breakdowns has had on the game as a whole is like something that I feel proud of, right? This goes way back to Merc and Kit started with doing like weapon sandbox reviews on weapon rolls on Reddit in like 2015 or something like that. And to look back, 9 years later, like where we are now, Kit was there on like a test QA contract for like a year, worked on all kinds of content. Merc has been there, kind of like seasoned weapons designer now. He's been on the, Crucible Sandbox team. We've done so many different interviews. I got the chance to work there and do tests for like a few months. And it's something that I think I'm very grateful for the opportunities of, because it's just not something that's like guaranteed. You can put a lot of effort in something and like never really build up a much of a relationship with the developer like that. And it's tough to do. So I definitely feel lucky in the way that we've come by that. And I also wanted to talk about kind of just like some more funny memories with the game and the franchise as a whole, because when you've been around and you've been invested in something for a long time, like things are bound to happen. So Impetus made a joke right before we were starting to record about how he's got family coming to visit this week, and he was so excited because he's going to have all his family in town and no time to play the new Into the Light content with all the updates coming out, because who even wants to play that, right? Who's even interested in all these awesome
Not me, I tell you what.
And that reminded me of when I was living in Chicago, and it's Warmind, I want to say, and Destiny 2 vanilla, it didn't have a strong start. I'll tell a story.
It sucked.
Yeah, it was not good. I remember the first couple of times I attempted the Leviathan, I didn't get anything but raid tokens, and I was ready to quit. I'll be honest with you guys. I was about to dip out of the whole game.
Saying I quit after Curse of Osiris.
Yeah.
Much like I quit in Destiny 1 after Vault of Glass. So there's a running theme here where the game launches quite poorly and I quit for like 9 months before the expansion, before the big expansion, like Taken King or Forsaken, where I would come back. So like there's a running theme.
And somehow Destiny lived. Somehow Destiny returned here, and I'm kind of getting back into the game. Warmind's picking up steam. I totally was feeling dejected after Curse of Osiris. We don't have to super dog on that. It was just dark times of Destiny. I'm in Chicago, and my mom comes to visit me for the weekend. I'm really grateful. It's great to have family come visit. You show them around town. You take them to the art museums, eat some deep dish pizza. It's great times. And we're like sitting outside the art museum, and I'm getting like pings like crazy. I've got like 10 notifications on Discord. I got people texting me about some mission that's showing up on IO. You gotta get back, dude. There's a new exotic weapon. Dude, Whisperer's back. There's a secret mission. There's a public event. There's all these bosses. And I'm sitting there at lunch with my mom eating a Chicago dog, okay? And I'm trying to not freak out, because nothing like this has happened in years. Nothing like this has been in Destiny 2 so far. Destiny 2, yeah, I mean, we just talked about, started off not great. First expansion really wasn't it. Second expansion, okay, we're getting there. And now we've got hype at an unprecedented level after years of things being slow. And I had to tour guide my mom around the city for like 3 days after that. 2 days, 3 days after that, before I finally got home on like, it was maybe the next Tuesday night after work. And I finally sit down after work and, I had to wait like 2 hours to get a public event like that to show up, but I didn't even care. I was so excited. I was freaking out so much. I tried to go on the mission solo, realized that was a horrible idea. Got another fire team, came back about an hour later, failed it, came back about 30 minutes after that, and finally beat it and got the Whisper and just had the time of my life. Which brings me to the next moment of, just times that you've been excited about the game, or like times that like the game brought you back to like some like a memory with some friends or something like that. Like this Whisper mission getting me to call up my friends that I did Leviathan with after like 6 months, and we got back in it together,
So I'll kick us off here because you were kind of asking this question before we went on air. So I already mentioned, like, I quit the game after Curse of Osiris. I think it was that kind of the early version of crafting, but it wasn't quite crafting. It wasn't quite focusing. It was very like it appeared to be like, oh, you could craft all these Curse of Osiris weapons, but no.
The Forge, like right?
Yeah, the Forge. I think we were all expecting the Forge to be some proto crafting system, but it indeed was not. But so Curse of Osiris came out, and I just took a break. I wanted to come back to Destiny. I knew, like, after Destiny 1 that they'd release a big expansion akin to Taken King, and it was the same with Forsaken. But anyway, between that, I was invited back in to do the new public event Escalation Protocol, which took place on Mars, and I thought, okay, I'll give this a shot. I just want to give this a shot. Some of my friends who had already been kind of playing at the time, they didn't quite leave Destiny, but they wanted me back in, and got in there, and I immediately fell in love with Escalation Protocol. It was just a very fun time. And you mentioned earlier on in the episode, Saint, you were talking about debuff stacking. That, just to give some context, that was when debuff stacking was still a thing, just up to before the release of Forsaken. And Tractor Cannon used to be that 50% weakening effect. And you could stack it with Tether, you could stack it with the old Solar Titan Hammer Strike, and you could burst down those the big Escalation Protocol bosses. So yeah, Escalation Protocol was what really dragged me back into the game, and I've not... we've took breaks, we've took kind of little hiatuses here and there since Warminds, especially recently with like the delay to the final shape. But I've never officially quit. I would certainly consider myself a non-Destiny player during just before Warmind days. So yeah, Warmind brought me back in, and then obviously Forsaken kept me playing, and that was definitely thanks to my clan and friends at the time. Then definitely one of the highlights. Impetus, what have you had a kind of similar experience? I know you came in a little bit later when it came to Destiny 2.
Yeah, I've not had a break from Destiny. I'm much like Court in that I'll play other weapons, but I will still almost weekly come into the game either
play
to
other
check out
weapons.
reverse.
Hold up, what show is this?
Okay, hold on. Cut that. No, I'll play other games a little bit, but I've always got stuff, to do in Destiny, or, personal things or achievements or seasonal challenges that I'll knock out. But I was into Destiny 1 a lot. I came into that. I had played it when it first launched, but on a friend's Xbox. We took turns passing the console after we died because there was no split screen, and we were Halo people growing up. So it was, to us, we just thought this was like Halo with extra steps. And then I got it eventually for myself. It was the Taken King, the Legendary Edition, so it had all the other content wrapped into it at that time. And I played the crap out of that all by myself, but I had Xbox 360, so I could not play Rise of Iron. And when Destiny 2 was announced, I was considering at that time of buying my own Xbox One, but I didn't have any other games that I wanted to play at that time. It was just going to be Destiny 2. Like that was going to be the reason for getting the Xbox One. And I didn't want to just go for it. So I said, I'll wait and see what the reviews are like for Vanilla D2. And then if it's good, I'll hop on. I'll finally get into a clan. I'll start playing with other people and we'll go from there. Well, the reviews come out and it's like, okay, I'm not going to buy a brand new console just for this. It's not worth it. Maybe it'll get better. You know, I was familiar at that point with the live service model at that point, you know, the content stuff. So I was like, all right, well, maybe I'll wait and see what some of the other stuff is like later. Curse of Osiris comes out. It's even worse. You know, people are getting even more negative. And at that point, I just kind of said, okay, nope, we're not doing Destiny. I'm going to move on to other stuff. And I checked out for as far as Destiny stuff until Forsaken dropped. And then I kind of started, I think like Datto popped up in my recommended YouTube feed. So I started watching a few more videos like, okay, this seems exciting. The Last Wish raid race comes out. I'm on Twitch. I remember watching Datto do that. He was the only content creator that I really remembered from Destiny 1. So I was watching him. I had absolutely no idea what was going on. I mean, there were, again, like they were throwing down Well of Radiance. Like I didn't even recognize that ability. There was all this new stuff. The weapons were different and everything. I just remember being completely blown away that a game that looked very much like Destiny also seemed to play so differently. And of course, the raid itself was so incredible to me. So I went to bed. I remember waking up and I didn't have class because I was in college. I remember looking at Twitch and he was still on. And I thought, oh, he must have completed it. They're doing reruns and stuff. So I just looked at it. It's a completely different encounter. And after a few minutes of watching, I'm like, oh, he's still going. He hasn't finished it. What in the world is happening right now? Like, what are they doing? Some sort of challenge? Like, how in the world is this possible? But yeah, after that, I was kind of like, okay, Destiny seems to be in a better spot. Again, I don't know if I want to buy a console for this or if I want to get into PC gaming, because at that point I was starting to save up for PC and debating whether or not I want to do that. So it was not until, Season of Arrivals that I finally, after, during the pandemic, I ended up buying a PC and getting into PC gaming, that I saw Destiny 2 in my Steam library and I had downloaded it because it was free to play at that point. And that's when I actually got into the game, and then I've been pretty consistent ever since. But I'll be honest, booting up Destiny 2 for the first time, even as a free-to-play player, felt really awesome. I was in the dark, but the game felt so mysterious. And I know that's a feeling that so many people wish they could go back to in the Destiny community. But yeah, I mean, there was stuff that I recognized. There's also stuff that I didn't recognize. I was coming in after the armor rework of Shadowkeep, so I had all these extra stats that I wasn't aware of. And then there were tiers 1 through 10. It was like, okay, I think I understand what's going on here, but I'm not quite sure. I guess there's a stat now that affects my super. I didn't even realize that was possible. And there's one for strength and grenades and melees. Okay. Weapons had random rolls. Like, I'm getting into that for the first time. You're like, what in the world even drops on these guns? But yeah, I mean, there was a lot to get into. And then there's also so much more content too than when there was in Destiny 1. And so I started getting into that. I started doing all these exotic quests because they just throw those at you without really explaining, hey, you probably want to be fairly good at the game or have a really good team with you if you want to go and get these guns. They're just like, it's available at a vendor, go get Izanagi's Burden. And you're like, oh, by the way, you need to do the Shattered Throne dungeon for a completion of that. Like, oh, okay, I have to do a dungeon. How hard is that? I'm watching videos of it and like, I don't want to do that by myself. That seems really intense. So I went and joined a clan and went and got my first Shattered Throne completion, and that felt awesome. And the guys who are, in my clan still, that did the Shattered Throne with me were like, hey, we're going to do a Last Wish raid later tonight. You want to join? We got a spot open. And I'm sitting there like, I don't know what I'm doing, man. I'm brand new. I got nothing. I got blues. I got a few purple weapons. I don't even know if the purple weapons are good. Like, dude, don't even worry about it. Like, we'll take you through it. It's going to be great. So then I finally went and did the raid that I remember watching Datto spend 12 plus hours, doing. We cruised through it at that point in time. I was just like, wow, this is amazing. So that was, I think, the high of just discovering Destiny 2, I think, is still kind of the highest peak for me. But I would also say going into Witch Queen, I was just so excited. Like, we had this podcast. I felt like I really knew the game. I was pretty confident in my abilities. I still had a lot of stuff that I personally wanted to achieve in the game, but it felt like it all felt achievable to me at that time. and there's so much new stuff coming out, right? We finally had a real campaign dropping with an expansion that had a different difficulties, which was just after the Beyond Light campaign, I was like, yes, please, I'll take anything that's somewhat cohesive. We also had Savathun, great character. I was really getting into the lore. Then we had the Dungeon Pass. We had a really great raid in VOW. You got the Ability 3.0 changes that were just, more things to build craft with, which was so exciting. So that what I'd say was kind of like my second peak for Destiny, was just the launch of Witch Queen and things getting slightly more complicated, slightly more interesting from a player choice perspective, and then also just the bevy of content coming out for PvE specifically. Trying to think of what else would be more exciting. I mean, I'd say a distant third peak of excitement for me would be where we're at right now. I'm really excited for Into the Light. I am confident that the final shape will be a good expansion, but I may be really wildly off base from the wider community, but I do feel like what we have right now is great. It's in a great spot. Sure, it hasn't maybe matched expectations, and yes, some things have gone pretty poorly this past year, but I'm still excited for Destiny 2. But I think it's a different level of excitement. It's an excitement of, yeah, I think we're kind of cruising at a good altitude here, and I'm excited to just be kind of riding along both with you guys and then also just kind of as an individual player. So again, it's a distant high for me where we're at right now, but it's definitely, I would not say that I'm in a low spot, or I don't consider Destiny to be in a low spot right now, which might be a surprise to some people.
Yeah, I think that pretty your story just reminds me of another topic I wanted to cover, which is just like community in Destiny, right? And there's highs and lows, and there's good and bad, and that comes with any game. After not really doing much raiding after Leviathan came out, I didn't do either of the raid layers. My team at the time was just like not interested in the raid content. Kind of after Leviathan came out, it just left a really bad taste in our mouth, despite the fact that Callus as a character being like super interesting. It really wasn't until towards the end of Forsaken that I had started raiding a lot more. I went back and did all the raid layers. I was just like LFGing to do Last Wish and all this stuff. And I knew that there was a raid coming out with the last expansion, or the last season, so to say, which I think was officially like being called that time, Season of Opulence. And the raid was Crown of Sorrow. And the raid came out on Friday. The expansion launched on Tuesday, and the raid came out on Friday at noon, which I don't know why the hell I thought this was a great time to just start going for the day one raid experience. But I took off of work, and I went for the raid on Friday with some random people, and that went horrible. I'll just go ahead and say it right off the bat. But the next day I found, like, I had tried to get in contact on just via like fire teams, Reddit, LFGs, Reddit pages, anything like that I could think of to try to like find a team of people that were interested in doing day one. And the second team I found was the team that I actually ended up clearing it with. And they reached out to me, and I kind of messaged them at first, and they reached out to me the next day on Saturday. And I think it was in the morning that we started going for it. And we didn't get the 24-hour clear, but we cleared it a few hours after reset on Saturday. And those are the people from Clan Truth. And that was the clan that I ended up joining that week. I mean, pretty much we got together. One of their friends had to bail for the second day, and we got in there and we cleared Galbron. And, we were all disappointed. It's a few hours after reset. We didn't get the emblem, but we did it. And that was my first experience ever of doing a day one raid, and it's what led me to the clan that I have been a part of ever since, and the mostly same raid team that I have done almost every day one raid race since, which is really huge. And if it wasn't for like that moment of like trying to reach out to just like meet some people on Reddit or whatever the case maybe is, I think how I found these guys. I ended up joining a clan that I'd been a member, an admin and promoter for years, and meeting all these guys, Pentad, Shadow, and Oblivion, and SRL, and Pope and Billy and Professor and any of these guys that I've done a day one raid with or anything like that over, the past like 6 years, which is like insane to think about. But yeah, any community moments or other things like that have really stuck with you guys over the years?
Well, I've had a little bit of a kind of low point when it comes to community. So I was part of community before DMB, and that's maybe kind of partially the reason why I wasn't resistant to joining DMB, the wider community, I should say. But it's just because I was already like busy with my own clan at the time, and I was busy with the friends that were all kind of playing with Destiny. Unfortunately, a lot of those folks aren't really playing Destiny now, which is a bit of a shame. And I'm thankful that I did find, or I was introduced to DMB kind of quite directly by Kit, and I've kind of met a lot of friends who, kind of very similar vein, where we do a lot of kind of the like day one or week one dungeons or raids. So like that experience hasn't quite changed. It's just the low period of I was part of a community which kind of became defunct, and then I joined another one which has the same vibes. So that's my kind of low point when it comes to community memories. But thancfully, and I don't mean this in a malicious type of way, I haven't had to use like an LFG group, or we recently got in-game LFG. I haven't had to use that to play the content that I really enjoy, and that are that's dungeons and raids. So like very thankful to be around similar-minded people, including you guys as well. Just want to type out a message to Saint or Impetus. You want to hop on and do a dungeon, and get a response within a short period of time, do it later or do it the next day or whatever, and we'll just hop on and do a dungeon. And it's great to have that kind of community. Yeah, that was kind of my both a high and a low point. High of, or I should say low of losing a community, but the high of joining a new one, and where I'm at just now with the plenty of Destiny nerds that I play with on a regular basis.
I just can't imagine. I mean, I really wouldn't play Destiny if I didn't have you guys and a wider community of people that I could just hop into an activity and play with. Like, It's just not. I would have lost interest. I would have felt maybe discouraged that I couldn't do a lot of this content by myself with other people. So yeah, I mean, I feel for folks out there that don't feel like they have a community to play with. And I, again, encourage you, like there are communities out there that are welcoming to people. Like, you do have to put yourself out there. And I realize that can be stressful for some folks, but I mean, there are just so many different types of communities that are welcoming in so many different ways. There are communities for people that are socially awkward, people with social anxiety. Like, there are specific communities out there that want to get activities together for you to help you, get through that stuff. I'm happy for the Fireteam Finder, but yeah, I think I'm kind of with you, Court, in that I'm glad that I don't have to use it, and it's an option for me if if I'm playing at a weird time and you guys aren't available, or anyone in the DMB Patrons Lounge isn't available.
Yeah, it's I think about Destiny as a game. I've been playing this game for almost 10 years, and it sort of get me thinking about why is this the game that I come back to? And there's a lot of games, kind of like you just explained. We all play a lot of different games, and we'll dabble in whatever we want to play, and it lasts for a few weeks or a month, but we kind of always keep coming back to Destiny. And I think that there's a few things there. Number one for me is the moment-to-moment play of firing a weapon and navigating like a character guardian in Destiny is like second to none gameplay feel. That's the initial hook. What gets the second hook in there is when you start to invest in your character. You get the synergies going, the subclass stuff going, which Court, as you said, the thematic part of that has really only come about in the past few years. And I think that I'm pretty sure that Rodney is somebody that has had a lot of influence on that aspect of the game, because I know that I've heard him talk about his passion for that before. So I would not be surprised to hear that he's had a big influence on that. And the way that you started to build your character out, invest in your character, and learn and master a skill set like that is the second hook. The third one is the people and the communities and the teams that you build, and going through activities like that require you to have a fire team of 6, that require you to have a fire team of 3, and they get you to build up relationships with those other people. And it's so easy to see how people can only ever experience the first kind of tier of that and not really understand like what's really going on there, why people would play this game for so long. Is because they never dive deep into like what the game systems have to offer, and they never dive deep into what the people around the game, the community, can truly offer you. And I think that's what keeps me coming back after 9.5 years.
I completely echo that, Saint. I think number one for me is just the feeling of the game. When you go, like sometimes I'll do this, maybe not every week, but once every month, I'll just go into a lost sector and just shoot some aliens in the head. And that is my kind of high for that like kind of tunnel vision point of time at that time. Because it just feels good. Like, Destiny 1 and 2 just has that feeling that other games don't quite get. Like, it's just not quite there. You know, I played a little bit of Anthem, I've played Division, those kind of similar type of games. They're not exactly the same, but they're very similar to Destiny. And they just don't quite have that feeling. Like, Anthem had the whole flying around, which was very fun, but it didn't quite have the Destiny style of, or I should say the Bungie style of shooting and just having that like visceral feeling. And yeah, I mentioned the whole subclass interactions with our weapons. I'm just thinking through my head, like if you've got a stasis weapon with headstone, you click the head, you spawn a stasis grenade. If you're on a glacial spawn, and if you're on stasis, you can interact with that, and it's just a lovely loop. I love that kind of interaction, and it's one of the reasons why my upcoming infographics will kind of dive into that, all the kind of synergies and interactions that you can have with spawning X from Y to trigger and to interact with C, and then it loops back into ABC, you know, that kind of thing. In terms of the community aspects of like Destiny, I think Destiny does get a kind of bad rap in terms, at the surface level, there are some shitters out there, but I think that's not indicative to just Destiny. That's kind of across the gaming, the gaming sphere. When you get into Destiny, once you find those communities that are kind of applicable to you, there's some really cool and really great people that you can interact and meet with. And on a personal level, Destiny has opened me up, because for those that are these guys will know, but for those that kind of play or they know me on a regular basis since I've joined DMB, I'm quite an acutely private person when it comes to like my name, my like where I currently live. I live in Scotland, but nobody really knows where in Scotland, that kind of stuff. But it's kind of prompted me to be a little bit more open with my fellow Destiny players. So just on a personal level, that's really helped me kind of open up compared to before, where, you know, I used to play a lot of Call of Duty, I used to play a lot of Battlefield, and I was very closed off to all the kind of people I used to play with, friends that we used to play with back then.
Yeah, I've definitely gotten a little bit more open with people that I've played with, which, I mean, again, like, I've never had a gaming community before. Everyone that I did play video games with prior to Destiny were people that I knew in real life. So, you know, we didn't discuss private details while we were playing video games together, because we already knew those and we already had those kinds of conversations outside of video games. So it just didn't make sense. Like, when I played video games with my IRL friends, we were there to chat about the video game that we were playing and stuff like that. So that was also a bit of an adjustment for me, Court, coming to Destiny. And it's like, so how's your day to day? And then not knowing how the person I'm playing with, their day went, because I don't know that much about them. You know, I didn't know their job. I didn't know where they were. I don't know if they have family, kids, spouse, you name it. So that has also been a bit new for me.
Yeah, so you moved to a VC. Well, go ahead, Court.
No, I was just going to say, to highlight what Impetus said a few moments ago about getting yourself out there, that's the hardest hurdle when it comes to joining community. And that's definitely what I kind of felt like. Like, I already had an established community going into Destiny. That was very, kind of top moment for me, where a lot of the folks that I used to play with on Call of Duty or Battlefield or et cetera, we would all kind of head over to Destiny as a group. But once that clan or group of friends kind of became defunct, it was a bit of a leap for me to join the D&B community. So I can completely echo that sentiment of, Destiny as a solo experience. You can play it solo, but it's better with friends, or it's better with people. Maybe not necessarily friends. You can develop that relationship, but at least at the very get-go, it's just that hurdle of joining the right community, joining the right people. And, we obviously recommend joining DMB as a community, but maybe science is not your kind of forte. You would prefer just to kind of be quite casual. I'm very sure there's varied clans and communities out there. But sorry, Saint, go ahead.
No, you're good. I definitely agree with all that. And I would say that, I was going to say is it's just like such a different aspect when you join a VC, and somebody says, "Hey man, how you doing?" And it's such a weirdly abrasive thing to hear at first, and then also comforting over time. To Impetus's point, when somebody just asks you how your day was, it's like the first time somebody says something like that to you, it's like you don't know how to respond. Almost, it's hard to understand how to engage with somebody that's actually trying to genuinely connect with you on a Thursday night. It's just it's weird. But it's such a thing that is worth doing over time. And the way that those relationships get built up. And I've had people this, what you were just saying, Court, reminds me of this also. People say, man, I want to be part of the Destiny community. Well, you know what you need to do to be part of the Destiny community? You need to play the game and you need to talk to people, and you're part of the community. I think that people get this idea that I need to have 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. I need to have 50,000 people follow me on Twitter. I need to do weapon reviews. I have to have news. I need to do guides. I need to be popular. I need to be placing in world's first raids. People set up all these weird expectations for themselves for what it means to be part of the Destiny community. You should play the game. You just talk to people, and you're part of the community, and that's it. And there's nothing that you could do past that that's going to make you more a part of the community.
Kind of on a related note, but so with me having the spreadsheet dynamic and the creating infographics, so people look up to me. I'm very thankful to be in that position. I won't call anyone out. I'm not going to name people, but they will know who I'm referring to. There have been times where people are a little bit scared to approach me because they see me as that kind of, Datto style kind of content creator where it's he's quote too large to be to be approachable. And that's certainly not the case when it comes to me. And I've had many messages and experiences where folks have tried to approach me and they said, "Oh no, I don't want to disrupt you. I don't want
to bother
annoy
you."
Yeah, that kind of thing. I'm just dude, I'm just another Destiny player. I'm just out here hanging with the Broskis, playing Spire of the Watcher. Impetus and Saint. We're just vibing, doing some dungeons. I'm not that important, So it's the same thing when it comes to just joining a community. And I kind of get the same. I don't want to go too much into detail, especially with it being an IRL friend. He can speak on his behalf, but I kind of get that same impression with my IRL buddy that I've been playing with recently. Doing the dungeons. It's his first kind of introduction to dungeons. He's never had that experience because he's not really been part of a Destiny community. But now that he's got someone like me who's quite established within the community, experienced playing these dungeons, he's got someone to play with. So at some point, I would like to kind of push him into a community, maybe not necessarily DMB, but just to kind of get him into raiding, because that's the next step for him.
I used to, before I got married, I used to do a lot of raid Sherpas, and that was something I would get like all the time in raid Sherpas. It doesn't always go super well. Sometimes like people struggle. Sometimes it's the first raid they've ever done and they want to learn Garden of Salvation. They've never done a raid before, or 8/Wish, or Vow, or Deepstone, whatever it is, and they want to get into raiding. And this is the one that they thought was cool enough to LFG for a team for, or to reach out to a Sherpa in the clan and try to coordinate a run. And a lot of times when you finish up something like that, people are, A, they seem like amazed at their own accomplishment, despite the fact that they probably could have done it like a year ago. And B, they are often very appreciative of like, thank you for being patient. Thank you for taking the time. And most of the time, it's not that bad. It's really pretty easy. and it's so funny to hear people like, oh my gosh, man, I really thank you guys for just taking the time to do Deepstone Crypt with me. And you've been in there for like an hour and 20 minutes. And it's like you cruise through to the encounters. And I think that people put so much pressure on themselves for needing to know how to do the game, needing to be experts at the game and all that stuff. And that's just not that's just not true. That's just not the reality, right? You don't have to be an expert. You need like 2 or 3 friends that are experts that have done the raid 3 or 4 times. And that's all you need to learn. And it doesn't need to get done in 45 minutes. You can take 2 hours. The people that are Sherpering you are expecting that it's going to take 2 hours. And I think that's my other piece of like anybody that's afraid to like put themselves out there more in like the hardware content of Destiny. Nobody does a 3-man raid first try. Nobody does a flawless raid first try. Nobody even does a raid on their first try. Okay. None of this stuff just happens. You meet people, you try to accomplish things together, you get better over time. Yeah. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Don't be afraid to lose, man.
There's a lot of Twitch communities that do like Sherpas even now. I think it's kind of that oxymoron where as the game gets quite low in terms of engagement, in terms of population, there's more of a kind of spike towards people doing kind of LFG/Sherpa runs, whether it's on Twitch or YouTube, wherever live streamers are. So like, I don't necessarily want to like single any individual communities out there, but I was recently watching Danfinity do his kind of weekend PvE runs, and that's just one example of many in terms of just getting out there and just joining a queue to do just one raid and just to see how you perform there. And yeah, saying absolutely right. You could be in there for 2.5 hours, but you're not. Yeah, it's not a sprint. It's certainly a marathon, and I mean that in a positive sense.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, the reason I started doing solo flawless dungeons this season is because I had the time. Like, all these previous seasons, there was always something temporary to do that was a little bit more immediate, right? We didn't have, like, Seraph wasn't a long season, so I had to get some things wrapped up there. I wanted to be ready for Lightfall. Wanted to take care of a few other things. But yeah, I mean, I got loads of time now. Yeah, I'll go knock off some stuff that's been on the bucket list for a while. Solo flawless dungeons included, a few other things. But yeah, community is really what makes Destiny special, but also they have done a great job of making the in-game content approachable, which I know can be a grinding point for certain people in the community, that they want it to be more complex, they want more of a challenge, but at the same time, the fact that you can take almost any gamer into Destiny 2 and they're somewhat ready for a raid and a dungeon is pretty special. Like, that's what gets you hooked to the game, right? That's how you start spending hundreds of dollars in Eververse. So you got to really give it up to Bungie. They've got that formula perfected.
I will say, with me doing the recent dungeon runs with my old friend, he has, like, it's been quite stressful in terms of him playing with this type of content, which is completely expected. Like, we shouldn't frown on that. But after we completed it, I would ask him, so how was that? He was like, oh, well, it was quite stressful, but I really enjoyed it. So it's just like, this is fantastic. This is the vibe that we're after. Like, these will be stressful to begin with. Like, Warlord's Ruin is there's a lot going on in all 3 encounters. It's, for a duel, especially me, I have to kind of consider both myself, and I've got someone brand new to this dungeon, so I also need to explain what's going on as we're doing it. So I'm not expecting us to kind of fly through this, and I shouldn't expect that. But that's one experience which I probably won't kind of forget is bringing someone brand new into the dungeon experience and just kind of seeing it from their perspective. Just to pivot into that kind of highs and lows. I know you've detailed, Impetus, your kind of highs and lows 20, 30 minutes ago. Saint, do you have any like specific highs and lows throughout the Destiny franchise, from Destiny 1 alpha/beta to now?
Man, I would say, we'll go through kind of the highs and lows like you talked about. Clearing Vaulted Glass for the first time was an unreal experience. Never had done anything like that in a video game. The idea of raiding was like so foreign to me, and Vaulted Glass was able to like successfully introduce me to that. It took me several weeks to beat Vaulted Glass for the first time. Right after that, I remember I was in college at the time. I was like freshman in college, and I don't know what it was. I was wearing some kind of Destiny shirt or had like a Destiny something on my backpack or something like that. One of my like classmates from a statistics class like called me out and asked me about the pin on my backpack, and we started talking about Destiny, and I joined their raid group, and I did Crow's Inn for the first time. And that was just like such a funny moment of like social interaction, and then we did a raid together like the next night. And that was really fun. Things kind of tapered off for me towards the end of that. I have a really good story I'll tell about by the time we got into Rise of Iron. I was living with a roommate, and we had both kind of started getting back into Destiny 2 when Rise of Iron came out. And we had been raiding Scourge of the Past with one of his IRL buds from out of state. And after like, I don't know, it had been a long time. It's been like 6 or 7 months, and his buddy's coming into town. He's going to stay with us for the weekend in our apartment where we're living at the time. And it's Friday after work, and he texts me and he says, hey, I just picked him up from the airport. We're going to go to this pub. You can just meet us there whenever you get off of work. Okay. Sick, right? I show up, and I'm walking onto the patio, and I realize that I have no idea what this dude looks like. I've known him for like 8 months, and I have no clue what this guy looks like. And my roommate is in the bathroom. So I'm just walking around, and I'm just looking around on this patio at this pub. No clue what this dude looks like. And I start, I'm just kind of walking around, and I start texting the guy. And of course, my roommate's in the bathroom. He's not responding. And he comes back out. And before I see him, he called out to my roommate and said something to him, and I heard his voice. And I knew it was him. And that was just such a surreal moment where it's like somebody so well, but you don't even know him. And I've had several moments like that. I've gotten to meet a lot of people from my clan, buddies, Pentad and Cephalopod and Soldier Bear and all these other people that I've gotten to meet from my clan. A buddy of mine, Phaeton from Massive Breakdowns, that these guys know. I got to hang out and get a beer with right around Christmas this year, and so many experiences, like social experiences like that, where you bridge the gap between Destiny and IRL. I got to get some pizza with Lego and Kit like late last year too, and then just again so many times like that where Destiny can bridge the gap to your real life and make a genuine connection. Absolute highs every time. Getting raid tokens in D2 vanilla launch, really low point. Yeah. High was the cliff that I wanted to jump off of. I'll tell you what. The
two tokens in a blue.
Yeah, low again. Really, we're bottoming out here.
What do you mean? Those were some of the highlights. Come on,
God, dude.
At least you didn't get all armor, right?
Bruh.
Yeah, no, I got a shotgun. Why was it a shotgun? No, it wasn't a shotgun. It was a submachine gun, I want to say. which I can't even remember the name of. It took me like 6 weeks to get Midnight Coup, by the way, in case anybody was wondering. What was I going to say? Last couple like highs and lows, I guess. Vow of the Disciple was like the most difficult raid race I've ever done in my life, and it was incredibly frustrating with the desync issues. I would say like we cleared it, but at what cost was kind of like my thought there. That really was a very difficult experience, really frustrating memories associated with Vow of the Disciple. King's Fall was a marathon of a race, but it is probably the best experience I've ever had doing a day one raid race.
I loved watching you do that. That was such a good one.
Yeah, thanks, man. I mean, the War Priest challenge, I think, is one of the toughest like day one challenges that I've ever been through as far as just like coordination and DPS checks go. But like, I mean, we freaking did it, and I'm really proud of that team. And we got like, and our placement was like 800 something, which I'm still like feel pretty good about. I've done a lot of them in the top 1,000 ish. I don't think we've ever really gotten past that, but I just felt like the team that I played with was really coordinated, really came together, really communicated well, and was like very perseverant through like the frustrating parts of that raid. So yeah, King's Fall day one and Destiny 2 was like my highlight. And also I'll cap that off by saying it was such a highlight because taking King in Destiny 1, I really didn't have anybody to play with. And then to come back full circle on that and have such a strong experience, feel like I really played well with my team and land a placement in like the or like, you know, clear the raid within contest mode on challenge, you know, and all that stuff was just super meaningful because of that.
Corbin, did you share your lows?
So I suppose I've already shared them. It was basically in Destiny 1, it was right after Vault of Glass. I was just kind of like, okay, I'm done. I don't need to do any more. There was nothing else to do. Like, I loved Vault of Glass, the experience of doing that. I don't think I did that like day one. It was maybe a couple days after. And yeah, don't get me wrong. Like the experience of completing Vault of Glass was great. Similar kind of vein with D2 after Curse of Osiris. I was just like, nah, I'm going to check out here. But then so like kind of pivoting towards the highs. The high was coming back to Destiny 2 with Warmind. It wasn't the highlight, but it was certainly like going from like perhaps one of the lowest to the quite a high was quite a whiplash to considering I was like, okay, I'm done. This is the second time I've quit Destiny. This is for it. This is for real now. But for Destiny 1, Wrath of the Machine completion. So King's Fall, love that raid. I really love that raid. The completion of that was like really like I can still remember the moment of killing Oryx, but it was still Wrath of the Machine takes the kicker here because that final boss room was both very challenging, but once you completed Axis, the second encounter of Axis, it was such a relief. It was just so like, oh my, so euphoric, just killing him, and then that's it. And then the whole quest with Outbreak Prime back then. For Destiny 2, I'm trying to think. There's a lot of moments. I think what the more recent one was doing Vow of the Disciple again. I didn't do day one for that, but completing Vow of the Disciple was perhaps out of the other raids that we've done. That was probably the most like the highlight of my raiding experience because I love that raid. That's such a fantastic raid to go back and just play. And then I think to your point, Saint, you mentioned this maybe about 30 minutes ago. You were talking about the Whisper mission. To experience that, like the Destiny community detecting something that's happened. I can remember the Reddit post as well. It's like, I've managed to get into this secret mission. Like, can you guys, what's going on here? And I can still remember the Reddit post and the screenshot of the Whisper, like the first section of the Whisper area where you're traversing. And it's just this Reddit post of, what's going on here? Like, I've managed to glitch my way into something, and everyone just started losing their shit, including myself. I think I was just coming back from work as well. And I was just like, what's going on? Like, why is everyone losing their shit here with this like potential glitch, but then it turned out, oh, you need to do the Taken Blight version for the heroic version of the Taken Blight public event to spawn a portal. You go through it, and then that's what starts the Whisper mission. That was like top highlight in terms of like dungeons and exotic missions. Probably, let's see here. What dungeons? So Presage, that's exotic mission, doing that for the first time, completely out the blue. Again, another kind of Whisper style mission. The very like fun vibes going through that, very creepy, that ship, that abandoned ship. But for dungeons, I didn't get into Prophecy a little bit later. It was like basically when they took it out of the game to then reintroduce it with the new kind of assets, because it wasn't like compatible with the tweak from, it was, when was that launched? It was just before, was that before Beyond Light? Or was that before Shadowkeep? They had to take it out of the game, and then they brought it back in.
I can't remember the exact timing for that.
Yeah.
Sorry, I missed that. Which
Prophecy.
So Prophecy got taken out ahead of Beyond Light because they had to update the lighting engine.
So I think out of all the dungeons, especially, or not especially, but considering the most recent ones, I think Prophecy doing that was a big highlight in terms of dungeons. But I mean, not necessarily the highlights, but the last 4, maybe 5, well 6 actually, dungeons have been like fantastic content to this game. Prophecy, Grasp, Duality, Spire, Ghosts, and Warlord's Ruin. Obviously, I've been doing quite a lot of Warlords recently, but they've the Rad team have really stepped up in terms of very engaging content, and we're due 2 more dungeons with the release of the final shape, so that's only going to continue. So very much the lows of the lows in terms of leaving Destiny after Vault of Glass and Leviathan, but then the highlights of coming back. We had some fantastic expansion packs like Forsaken and Taken King, and then raids like Wrath of the Machine, Vow of the Disciple, dungeons like Prophecy and Warlord's Ruin. So very much hit the highs and the lows there.
I'm going to be honest. I have an upcoming opportunity here to turn one of my lows into a high. So, okay. I have struggled with the 0 hour mission when I played it back when it was still available on Hunter and on Warlock. That exterior jumping section, I could never get past it. I was able to complete it once, so I did get Outbreak perfected, but I never got the Catalyst. I was never able to beat it on heroic difficulty. Because I kept dying on the exterior section. It's like one of the most embarrassing memories that I have in Destiny 2 is doing that mission on Heroic for the first time with 2 people from my clan that I hadn't played a lot with, and I could not get past that part, and they were in the final boss room, and I was still on that jumping section dying. I was on Warlock, so I was dealing with floating, which did not go well. It was taking me a while to adjust to that. And we ended up failing. The timer hit 0 before they could complete. And I just felt awful because I wasn't there in the boss room with my other 2 clanmates to actually complete it. So I am looking to redeem myself, and hopefully, I've got 40 minutes this time. I should be able to, fingers crossed, get through it. I'd like to think I'm a little bit better at jumping across all 3 characters all these years later. But yeah, that was one of those things where it's like, this is the stupidest thing for me to be bad at, is just moving around with my character. But now I'll have a grapple. Now I've got Thunder Crash as a last minute, redirect, course correct. So I'm hoping I can be a little bit more successful. But yeah, that's one of my like gameplay lows, was just struggling in 0 hour. And we'll see how much I've improved on my traversal skills when 0 hour finally drops in a few weeks.
So you only completed that once?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's like... So that...
Season of Arrivals, man. Yeah,
I know. It's just such a, like, quite a while ago now, but yeah, I forget that was when they took them out the game. Did you do the Whisper mission?
I did. I did get the Catalyst for that. The very final week that Season of Arrivals was around, I could have unlocked 1,000 wings if I had just gone and done it and did the Void one. I did the Arc and the Solar version, but there were a few other things that, because I had a huge list of content that I wanted to knock out. And for a lot of it, it was just get the exotic weapon. Like, they'll put the catalyst back in the game at some point once they take the mission out. So for me, it was like, okay, I've got time. I did the Whisper mission. Now I need to move on. I got Outbreak perfected, the base gun. I didn't get the catalyst. That's fine. I'll get the catalyst after Beyond Light, because they're not going to get rid of the catalyst. They're just going to get rid of the way that you get the catalyst. So I never went back and really went for it on the heroic difficulty. I did the base mission once successfully. I tried the heroic, failed, just kind of gave up on that and said that's a lost cause. I need to go do other content. I'll be honest, I'm not fully proud of the things that I did accomplish. Like, I went and got Segura's Ghost Shell. I did all the crafted weapons on Curse of Osiris, because it was like, well, it's going away and it'll be a bragging right, because at the time it was like one of those ghost shells that so few people had. I still have Segura's Ghost Shell. That's the main ghost shell I use on my Warlock, and I look at it from time to time and like, I should have gone and grabbed some other stuff. Like, I'm sorry, Segura, you are not worth it. You are not worth it, unfortunately. But
oh, poor Segura.
Rest in peace, girl. So 0 Hour I struggled with. I'm trying to think of some of the other stuff that I got. Many of those exotics, I mean, I wouldn't call this a low, because it was still things for me to go chase. But when Beyond Light dropped and the exotic kiosk came around, so much stuff in there. I mean, I would say probably the majority of stuff that ended up in the exotic kiosk I didn't have, and I needed to just straight up buy. And that was terrible for me, because so many of those resources were used elsewhere. Like, I really did not have a full set of masterworked armor for so long, because I was saving up some of those resources to get really good exotic weapons that were in the exotic kiosk. And I absolutely sympathize with new players or players who are resource poor trying to jump into the game, because you got a hell of a decision to make. Again, the changes to Rahul, where you can now buy some of that stuff, is really great, but it's still so expensive to get to what I think should be like a midpoint of your Destiny player career, of like getting a masterwork set of armor, because it's already so hard to get the armor. Like, the fact that you should have to spend so much just to masterwork the armor after you do finally get the rolls that you want on that armor seems crazy to me. But hey, that's my armchair dev opinion coming out. All right, who put vault space in the script? I want to know why that's in there. What could you possibly have to say on the 100th episode of this show about vault space, of all things?
Well, it wasn't me.
I don't know.
I didn't put vault space.
That's I don't know. I think Otto put that in there. He must have been wanting to talk about his vault.
What are we sitting at right now, Saint? What's the number?
593. No, you'll be happy to know. I'm pretty proud of this.
593.
I've got 54 items marked for deletion, and that's to make space for all the stuff I'm about to get for Into the Light.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bungie just keeps giving you people more and more vault space, and you keep filling it up. I don't want to hear any more complaining. I'm done doing vault cleaning after the final shape launches. When you got 600 spaces and you fill them up, you're on your own, man.
I'm not saying I'm being
spaces.
enabled, but
It's going to be 700. Because we're at 600
That's right.
just now.
We're at 600. Yes, sorry.
Could be 1,000.
Some of us put arbitrary restrictions.
It could be 1,000. All right. Actually, there's two things I want to say about this. Number one, I really wish there was a way to use collections to store a specific role of a weapon. So let's say you have random rolls on a weapon. You can't reacquire weapons that have random rolls from collections. But I wish that once you got a roll of a random weapon, you could save it to your collections. Meaning that you would only be able to ever have a single roll that you'd be able to pull from collections, but at least it was the roll of your choice that you wanted to save as your dedicated copy to pull back out, whatever the classic roll of the weapon it may be, right? What
I don't know about you, Saint. I use my collections to store my copy of Queenbreaker.
Oh, because you don't want to give your fire teammates PTSD.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Look, we know that's getting buffed in the final shape. So
I mean, I also have my Truth is in collections.
Yeah. You know what else is getting buffed alongside Queensbreaker in the final shape is my cortisol levels because of your usage of that weapon. Okay.
It's a very good gun. Y'all are haters. Even like we had Chris on last episode, and even he agreed. And
you were talking about enabling. Is Chris buffing this weapon?
It is not enabling. I'm actually surprised it's set back up to 500, but I'm at 507. But that's because I'm like hoarding the prophecy weapons just so I can see, okay, what rolls can I get when I'm farming the first or third encounters, because I've got like 6 relentlesses here, but I just want to see how many relentlesses I can get before I start deleting some of these. I'm also, for those, I know a lot of folks will know this, but I don't delete exotics because it's too much of a faff for me to go through like 2 different menus to then acquire the weapon, bring it
exotic
up to
weapons. Exotic weapons, to be clear.
Sorry, exotic weapons, yes. I can't I can't be bothered going through the multiple menus to reacquire my Outbreak Perfected because it's just going to live in my vault. So this would probably be how many exotics do we have in the game now? Exotic weapons we have in the game? Close to 100 or something like that.
Oh, I think we're over 100.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're probably thinking like 380 vault spaces, practically speaking, that are being taken up. It's certainly something I'd love to see in the future. I don't know, like from a technical standpoint, maybe not something that they could do, but exotics don't take up a slot in your vault. Exotic weapons, I should say, and any like Hawkmoon is maybe the exception where you can roll multiple different versions of it. It's not currently craftable, but that's my kind of wish for the future. But yeah, I'm probably not going to reach Saints 3 off from the maximum, especially with the 1 plus 100. But we'll see.
You got to do something about that before Onslaught. You know how many drops you're going to be getting. Your postmaster is going to be a disaster.
My goal is to get at least 75 spaces in my vault before Into the Light comes out, as first space for the weapons. And I don't know is enough. Which talking about this reminds me, Court was talking about how people approach him, and the ironic part is that people that I don't know are very timid and usually and approaching to, they just talk about weapon rolls or want to do a raid or something like that. My real friends berate me because I don't know the difference between tier 8 and tier 10 on a specific grenade cooldown. Okay, that's the difference right there.
Yeah, people come to me and be like, wait a minute, does that doesn't stack? That doesn't actually happen, but that's kind of a similar experience.
Yeah.
People come to me like, that rocket launcher is not an adaptive, it's actually an aggressive. Like, oops.
Yeah.
But you'll need to sort that. In fact, we were thinking about like things that we could do for the 100th episode. I think that was one of them. We'd kind of inspect each other's vault.
Good God.
Just like
maybe after we finish recording here, because that way when it totally devolves and we no longer want to talk to each other, at least we'll have done 100 episodes,
It's the 100th episode and the final one.
Thank you so much for listening. I never want to see these people ever again.
What do you mean you've got 3 Telestos in your vault?
Oh, jeez.
How many Hawkmoons is too many? 9? Just asking for a friend.
Bro.
How many perks are in column 3? I mean, at least 1 for each, right?
Yeah.
I've got 535 slots actually in my
vault,
but I'll say this, that number has gone up significantly ever since I've gotten more and more invested in PvP, because now I have way more PvP guns.
You're keeping twice the rolls.
I've got 4 Belisariuses that frankly I don't need, because I did that's the thing. Like, it was a comp weapon. It's hard to get. I hate doing comp, so I'm gonna save every roll and then I'll play. And then of course the real issue that I have for 4 different rolls is I watch Cool Guy's video on the goddamn recoil direction, and they all have different values, and I need to play with the one to find out what number I need to look for. Oh, that change is so annoying.
Yeah, I feel that. And going to, I guess, some final ones here with like looking back at like massive breakdowns as like growing as community and the show growing and all that stuff. Just the way that like the show has like required us to grow in the way that we manage the community, all the information that the show puts out, all the guides that Cord puts out, all the discussion, all the thumbnails, the show production and stuff like that. I feel like we've just kind of been required to like grow in kind, like as the show has grown as like a trio and as an overall team with our editors, and all the producers and all that stuff. And also,
I will say,
yeah. Well, go ahead, Cord.
Just on that point about like growth, I very much like appreciate how natural that growth has been with the three of us. I don't think I've ever had to like chase y'all up about XYZ. Like, so just to put it in like context, Saint's the one that puts the episodes out. He's the one that actually uploads the episodes to all these platforms, and he creates those thumbnails. But it's not something like Impetus and I have had to chase Saint up. And it's the same, like Saint hasn't had to chase me up because I haven't like done a breakdown for like the Reddit breakdown for like a dev episode. And it's the same with Impetus, where we haven't had to chase him up. So it's very like natural growth. It's a very natural like team. Like there's no like
and it's going to stay that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Like there's certainly, I just cannot think of a time where we've kind of butt heads in like a not a negative way, but in a constructively, okay, like maybe we need to kind of chase this up when it comes to podcast versus enemies. Sorry, Hussein.
No, it's good. And I mean, I've heard a lot of like not stories like that, like horrible stories about people trying to work with each other over content. I don't want to get into specific details, but there are plenty of like teams and groups of content creators that have like totally devolved over time, and some of them just don't work together anymore. Some of them like don't even talk to each other anymore. So it's pretty nice to have that have been so cohesive over time. And the way that we've been like, the other thing I was going to say is supported by people in like Massive Breakdown's community as a whole, giving feedback, linking us additional resources, doing testing and providing insight for the show, for discussion points. The roles getting uploaded to your dim wish list every week just like doesn't just like automatically happen. Shout out to Adam Soundboy, right, for always doing those. All the damage testers in the Discord, Max, Rock, Mossy. I mean, there's so many people that have contributed to topics that we've been able to discuss on the show over the 100 episodes that we just like don't always have the time to like do the testing for and put the time into, but we want to deliver that information, in that like kind of informed perspective. So like the support there in the, one of the other notes was we got our official intro song from NEMS. We used to just use little soundtrack clips from like Destiny, different releases and stuff like that, but like having our own unique show intro song was like such a moment of like not only feeling supported but like feeling defined as the show.
Yeah, I mean, I'd certainly put my hand up and say my work on Destiny Science has diminished because I'm working on this podcast, and I don't mean that in any negative way. Like, it's just going to be the natural kind of the growth, the kind of the ebb and flow when you do become like a content creator in terms of like a Destiny podcast or YouTube, etc. But having folks like Rock and Mossy and Adams down by way to do that kind of extraneous kind of detail to kind of keep us in check, to kind of like if we post an episode, we'll get maybe some feedback and commentary to say what you mentioned here was maybe not the correct way to describe like target lock or something like that. So to have those folks have been like completely like just amazing to have that kind of side of the community, which we talk about them from time to time, but they are definitely like the foundation to this podcast.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great community. I mean, it's people who are passionate about very specific things, and it can be very easy to mock them sometimes for how passionate they are about the things. And I'm speaking as someone who has certainly made fun of scientists for caring about very specific, minute details like top minor DPS, but that kind of knowledge is important. It does actually contribute to how you can look at the game in a positive way. It lets you prioritize certain weapon archetypes. It also helps you kind of take a look at how certain buffs how certain changes can be viewed as buffs or nerfs to weapons. So all of that information is extremely valuable, and I am very grateful for everyone who does work on Destiny science in any way, whether you're involved in DMB, the wider community, or not. We do appreciate you.
Yeah, that intro jingle is so much. It's just fantastic. So much vibes. Gives me all the synthwave vibes. I love it. I think just as a kind of final point to this topic is we've been a very rare, very kind of thankful place to invite Destiny developers onto the show. So, I mean, folks who are listening to this episode will know we had one last one, but we've now averaged a Bungie dev once every 33 episodes now at this point. So we are in that very thankful, like, gracious and exceptionally rare kind of place to have that interaction and that peek behind the scenes. And, like, you know, those episodes, again, it goes back to the point I was making, like Saint and Impetus and I and Otto and kind of the wider community kind of do step up to do these dev episodes. They take quite a lot of work behind the scenes. There's a lot of things that aren't shown during the episodes, but you know, it takes up the bulk of the production of those type of episodes just to get everything sorted, and then actually, you know, communicating and fielding those questions to Bungie devs about the game. And like I still pinch myself with these kind of dev episodes. You know, when we had Chris on last time, it was just still very surreal that, you know, 99 episodes later, that we're on our third dev interview, and it's just like, wow, this is like, am I still dreaming? I still remember joining the podcast 2 episodes or 3 episodes in, and you know, 20 or 30 episodes later, we're interviewing Chris Proctor and Vivian for the weapons team. It's just like, what is going on? How is this happening? You know, so it's,
and you have to remember, like, when PvE was created, Chris had been on DMB, I think, either twice or 3 times at that point. So there was already a relationship. We were very much aware of the fact that Bungie devs were willing to talk to Merc and Kit, and of course, Merc on the Firing Range show had also interviewed Chris as well, and Kevin. So we didn't say anything at the time. It was very much, you know, we were never going to try and angle, hey, can you guys talk to them to see if we can get a person? So it came as a surprise when DMG reached out to Kit through Twitter and a Twitter DM and said, we would like to talk to the PvE people. Like, they didn't even initially reach out to us. That's how it was back then, because you know, DMB was still going on at that time. So we were shocked, we were thrilled. I think we were very scared the first time, especially since we'd never even directly talked to Chris. I think that was Vivian's first time making a public appearance as a developer, if I'm not mistaken. And then she's showed up in some not live streams, but some Vidocs since then, which has been really cool to see. So yeah, it's been a wonderful opportunity. We're always grateful to have him on. Look forward to any potential future opportunities as well as we head into the year of the final shape.
I think also back then, like episode 20, we were kind of thinking, okay, maybe we'll get some Bungie devs on, maybe 80. So like this time, like episode 100, we'd get like a Bungie dev on for the first time, but not like 10 episodes later after episode 20.
Yeah, we were on the DMB schedule with, like, you know, several hundred episodes. Like, oh, you know, it'd be nice, you know, before episode 100, we'd be cooking at that point.
Yeah. So just getting that community interaction, and like, obviously a lot of folks have read our transcripts, or they've read the breakdown, or they've listened to those episodes. And yeah, we like, as much, like, there's so much work that goes into those, but we thoroughly enjoying actually producing them. You know, maybe some late nights writing up some transcripts or Reddit breakdowns, or uploading the content on YouTube, Saint. But we really love those, and may it continue. Maybe not just for our podcast, but for others. But we'll happily have any Bungie devs on.
Yeah, I don't know. I forgot to mention that at the beginning of the episode. I almost forgot about it. I spent a few different nights this week building a new PC. Almost entirely from scratch, except for my graphics card and a couple of hard drives. Basically, it's the only thing I transferred over. So I'd be very happy to have those render times down a little bit with some more RAM, better motherboard, much bigger CPU. Really looking forward to getting those YouTube renders out a little bit quicker.
Get the questions on the YouTube video. You were slaving away, implementing them to the video, and then having to upload that through your PC. Yeah.
Which it's great when your internet's great, but it turns out the uploading is only half of it if you can actually get the video created in time. Doesn't matter if you can upload the whole thing in about 3 minutes,
Yeah. Those experiences. I think in terms of like Destiny, we've talked about our kind of highs within the game, but in terms of Destiny, the product, the brand, kind of very like top level, I would certainly say doing this podcast definitely number one, and then interacting with the kind of wider community attached to DMB, and then obviously interacting with Bungie devs on our show. Like that's always been like such a high, despite, I say despite, but like it's certainly not meant to be negative, but like so much work goes into those type of episodes. But man, we really love them, don't we?
Absolutely. And again, even the non-Bungie dev interviews, we absolutely loved having Rock on. That was something that we had been discussing amongst the three of ourselves. Like, we'd like to get some people from the community on who would be some good picks. His name was at the top almost immediately. We reached out to him. That took a few weeks to kind of get set up. Just what are we going to talk about? How are we going to talk about it? Because again, weapon damage is a very complex topic, and we didn't want him to be too stressed out because we understand from ourselves how stressful it can be talking about these things in a podcast format. So we were thrilled, of course, to have him on and then have that episode go over so well. Love that.
Yeah, maybe some more guests over the next 100 episodes.
Yeah, I think we can agree to that.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else we want to hit on? Any other questions we want to ask ourselves?
I've
got one, but it's not an urgent one. So if you guys have something else you want to ask, go for it.
I think we've touched on the kind of the top level points that we wanted to make for the podcast and then for the game as well. May we see another 100 episodes.
Yes.
Yeah. Which I guess we can talk about our next, our kind of schedule, briefly before we close it out. I'm going to be gone next week. I'm taking a trip up to Chicago, which I'm really looking forward to. But that does mean that I will be out of town during our normal recording session. But I believe that you guys will carry on in my stead, which we got a lot. I mean, there's a lot to talk about next week. We have Into the Light drops on Tuesday. And then on Tuesday, also at the same time, or 30 minutes before Into the Light releases, we've got a gameplay reveal stream about the final shape. And then we'll have... we're not exactly sure how the release schedule is going to work for the weapons, but we'll be reviewing the Into the Light weapons kind of over the next few weeks to a month as they release out, right?
Yep. So the plan is for next week, Court and I will finally cover the new playlist weapons. Now that we've had Iron Banner this past week, so Tusk of the Boar and Multi-Mach have finally dropped. Those were the last few weapons that we were kind of waiting on to show up and be available for people to even get drops before we broke them down. So now that those are out, they've been out for the week, Court and I will cover those two weapons plus our new Nightfall weapons plus the two Trials weapons as well. And then the week after that, when Saint returns, we'll cover our first batch of Into the Light weapons. It will be 6 weapons. So again, we'd like to wait just so that you guys can start getting your hands on them, right? Each of those weapons will have a quest that you need to complete to be able to attune to them. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to start talking about them ahead of time before you've even gotten your hands on them, before we even know what the drop rates are like and all that stuff. So if it turns out that the shiny version of each of those weapons that drops at the end of the quest is a really good roll, we want to be able to tell you that so that you don't maybe have to worry about attuning to the regular version of that down the line. So that's why we're going to wait. But we will, 2 weeks from now, cover the initial batch. And then it'll probably make the most sense to wait until all 6 of the second batch are out, because they'll come out after that 2 weapons per week to do the second batch of those. And then in the meantime, we still have a GM breakdown. What is it? Is it Lake of Shadows that we need to do?
Yes, the one that keeps escaping us.
Yeah, wow. I'm so thrilled to be able to cover that.
The last time we tried to do Lake of Shadows is when we had Chris and Rodney on back in like episode 67 or whatever episode it was.
Like a year ago? Oh,
yeah,
sweet.
and then we've not had Lake of Shadows since, and then we had it this year, and then we would probably have covered it episode 99. So it's becoming the running gag for the show that we are probably not going to break down Lake of Shadows anytime soon. Maybe when they rework it for the third time.
Can the GM breakdown be just don't do it? Like, you really don't need it.
I mean, okay.
For all the conquerors out there, shaking
you don't
their
want to
fists
worry
at
about that
me,
one.
like,
Get good.
Just, yeah. I don't know. Bring Queen's Breaker in there or something. Just
all right. Okay. All right, Mister. You
had
a question.
Yes. Yes. My final question. Very simple. Probably not as straightforward. Are you guys excited for the final shape, for the year of the final shape? Not just the expansion itself, but the transition to the 3 episodes plus the dungeon pass. Because it's funny. I've been thinking about episode 1. We were on the cusp of the Witch Queen. There were a lot of big changes coming with that as well. That was also the first year we were getting the dungeon pass. That we weren't quite sure what that was going to, paying for dungeons at that point as a separate thing was a pretty controversial move. But we were hoping that it was going to turn out well. And I think we'd say that, yeah, for $20, the dungeons that we have gotten so far have been pretty much worth the money. Like, certainly if you look at the loot that's been dropping, the exotics that have been added, I think it certainly has been something. But going from 4 seasons a year plus an expansion plus a dungeon pass to 3 episodes a year plus an expansion plus a dungeon pass, but do you have any concerns?
I just feel like I'm so in the dark still.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel, even though I can look at a list of like items that will be added to the game over the episodes, just any time like this where we have like a major shift in content delivery, it's hard to say.
Yeah, I'm the same with Saint. I'm quite apprehensive with Final Shape, the expansion coming in June, plus episode 1. Like, I think we know, well, except like the narrative aspect of episode 1, but we know what's kind of expected. But post Final Shape and post episode 1, we know we're getting the 2 dungeons, so that's kind of a settled deal. But it's everything else. I think we should temper our expectations that the game is probably going to wind down to a point, not completely wind down, but it's not going to be as busy as it's been, say, with like from Witch Queen to Lightfall, and then Lightfall to the Final Shape. So there is a little bit of apprehension, but that's natural. I think we're all kind of feeling that. In terms of the actual expansion pack of the Final Shape, like, love to see just the final like conclusion to Light versus Dark, to play that raid, and anything else that comes of that. I know we're getting quite a lot of system changes. We know we are getting the UI update. It's maybe not with the Final Shape. I'm not sure if it's been confirmed for the Final Shape, but we're getting it sometime this year. And then we're getting a bunch of like power level system probably getting revamped. So like there's fundamental changes coming, much like we had with Lightfall, but they haven't shared a lot. We're probably going to get some more information the next couple of weeks, but the highlight's going to be Into the Light. They want to give that some breathing room, so we're still going to wait out for that kind of information. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it, but there is some element of kind of anxiety of what comes after episode 1.
Yeah,
I asked that. Oh, go ahead, Saint. Sorry.
I was going to say it's the first time we've been in this much like uncharted territory in like a long time. Like the certainty over like Destiny's and expansions and patterns has been pretty similar for a while.
I mean, we always...
Yeah, I'm trying to think, like, what was the biggest shift? I guess probably when seasons were really introduced, right? Like, when the season pass concept came to Destiny was probably the last time you guys had a big shift, and I wasn't even around for that. I've had seasons of Destiny 2 the whole time I've been playing the game.
Yeah, and, like, I think we've always knew that there would be another expansion after the one that's approaching. So we, like, they kind of put it out. What was it, just after Beyond Light? They were like, okay, we've got 3 expansions coming up. We've got Witch Queen. We've got, at the time, it was the Final Shape. And then they announced a little bit later, okay, we're adding one between Witch Queen and the Final Shape. And that was Lightfall. Yeah, it do be just a bit, like, worrisome, but we'll see. I certainly don't want to get too negative when it comes to why haven't Bungie talked about a potential expansion a year from now. But I'm just thankful to be doing this podcast and playing the game and just vibing out, you know?
Yeah.
I bring it up because I'm actually rather ecstatic about the year.
Okay.
I have really not liked 4 seasons a year. It just, the pace feels too fast for me. I will admit I have a very addictive personality, and so I've definitely spent more time playing Destiny 2 than I probably would have wanted. I'm sure, 10 years from now, I'll probably look back on that and thought, man, I should have used some of that time for many other things, other games, other things outside of video games entirely. But I think the fact that we're transitioning to something that you can pick up one of the episodes at any point in time and none of the other ones will tie into it is going to be a huge breath of fresh air, I think, for myself, but also for the wider community. Like, the lowering of that barrier to entry can only be a positive thing for Destiny at this time. I feel strongly that's an objective statement to make, right? There have been a lot of things that the game has struggled with, and it's been getting people onboarded has kind of been the one constant. So to move to, you get to pick and choose which episode you jump into to the story at that point in the Destiny universe. And if you don't have a ton of familiarity with what's happened before, that's okay. You can kind of pick and choose what expansions that exist at that point in time you want to delve into. But the current story, the current episode that you jump into, that's a standalone thing that you get to play and enjoy on a much wider scale of time than how the seasons have typically lasted. Again, one of the things that I like about Season of the Lost is I feel like I finally have time to go and pursue some stuff that's been a little bit lower down on my priority list, or stuff that I have wanted to do that maybe I just didn't feel like I had time. The dungeon passes in particular, I like the content, but I feel like I don't have enough time to actually go and farm out the roles that I wanted. I went really hard when Duality dropped, trying to get Artifice Armor. I got a lot of the great roles that dropped from that. Spire the Watcher then came out 2 seasons later, and I really tried and farmed for a lot of those weapons, but I did not get good rolls of it, and that really stung because I felt like my time hadn't been respected. And even this year with the Dungeon Pass, there have been a lot of weapons that I want to go and chase. They just haven't dropped. I've had poor RNG, and it really sucks. Like, it was only this past week that I finally got the rocket sidearm. After listening to Chris talk about how much fun it was to design it during our interview, I'm like, just want that stupid gun to drop for me, and I want a good roll, and I want to go play with it. So I am looking forward to having things slow down, to have the pace of new stuff kind of slow down. And if that means that my community of people that I regularly play with maybe stop playing for a little bit, that's okay. But again, with that barrier to entry being lower, we could all just get together and say, hey, are you guys free next week? Can we do some Destiny 2 next week? Just play some stuff? Schedule that, we all hop in. There's not all this stuff of oh my gosh, I gotta grind 50 power levels to go play this new episode activity. To not have to worry about that and just get the gang together and go in and play Destiny, that is my ideal playing fantasy, really, when it comes to Destiny at this point. I've already done the weekly grind, I put in the time, I feel like I put in too much time. I'm ready to take a breather. I can go play other games with you guys, and then when the Destiny itch needs to be scratched, we'll get together and go knock out a bunch of stuff kind of on our own timetable and not Bungie's timetable. That's how that's my positive outlook on the thing. That's why I'm excited for the Final Shape.
That's very fair, because with Into the Light, we're getting that exact same treatment where they're giving you that kind of quest, or like a pack that you launch. You open the game, you've not played the game for a while, you're still like 1600 or something like that, and you get gear and weapons that are at 1800, so the powerful cap. And then you can just, join up. Impetus, Saint, and I just join. Like, if I wasn't playing as much, we could just go and just launch Onslaught and just have a good time. And that's what I absolutely agree with what Impetus has been saying there. Like, that's one of the kind of blockages with the game, especially for new players or those that are returning to game, where you had to grind up to the powerful cap to then do the actual good content. The recent dungeons, they still have power caps enabled now, but I think they're really starting to defocus from the power cap, which they haven't explained too much of it. We know it's getting changed in the future, in the very near future, but we're certainly entering that period. So yeah, I completely agree there. Impetus, it's certainly going to be more welcoming to new players or people who haven't really played it as much. Maybe the last time they played was Beyond Light, and it's a very different game now. But just that barrier of access. Like, oh, what do you need to do? Okay, you need to do 3 GMs, get your pinnacle, and then you need to do all these dungeons to get your pinnacles here. They might not drop in the same slot. It's just a terrible system looking back.
Yeah.
Definitely looking
but
forward to
we're
it.
moving past that.
Yep.
Yes.
We're moving past that. On to bigger and better things. On to another 100 episodes.
Absolutely.
But before we get to that, of course, we want to say thank you for the existing 100 episodes. Thank you for listening to however many of those you have listened to. Especially thank you for listening to episode 100. That will wrap things up. We want to thank our audio engineer, Autodidactos. Sorry you aren't feeling well, buddy. Wish we could have had you on for this one, but we'll make sure to grab you for a future episode. Next week, it's going to be Court and I. We're going to be talking about playlist weapons. Going to tell you that right now. We've got some fun ones to cover, some exciting possibilities, things that maybe will be useful to you as you hop into Onslaught. Churn out that 50-wave marathon for your sweet classic God roll weapons, for chasing those shiny weapons. Saint, hope you have a good trip. Can't wait to see you in 2 weeks to cover those Into the Light weapons. Until then, my name is Impetus. You can find me by that name in Discord and in Destiny, where I will be perusing my vault, making way for all those shiny new weapons in just a few days' time. Court, where can our listeners find you?
Yeah, my name's Court. You can find me in-game as Court and the Discord server as Court. And you can find all my various projects and infographics over on my socials. That's Court Projects, amongst other Destiny applications and spreadsheets, content to enhance your Destiny experience over on the Destiny spreadsheets link tree. You'll also find me in-game, vibing out, farming those Onslaught level 50 runs to get those spicy, shiny weapon rolls. Saint, where can we find you?
Yep, my name is Saint Kabir. You can find me by that name on social media or over in the Destiny Massive Breakdowns Discord, or in-game. Still trying to hunt down a midnight coup, hoping it takes me less than 6 weeks at this time to get the one that I'm looking for. You can also follow Massive Breakdowns at Destiny Massive Breakdowns or Destiny MB on social media, wherever you can find us. Thank you for listening to another episode of PvE.